Okay.
I actually found last week watching the replay that
Boom, boom.
he could
Oh,
hear me better than
pop,
No
pop.
kidding. Pop, pop, pop. Okay. I just find it hard to hear you guys, right?
I find it hard to hear you, but on the video, I find it way easier to hear us than previously.
Okay. You know, actually, the other thing I find hard is because there's a bit of a reflection to see hands. Is that actually hand or a reflection of somebody else? Okay. Right? You get 6 or 7 of them? Okay. We're live and the public's going to think that we've been drinking before we did this meeting, so we better get on track here. So first off, we get the agenda in front of us. I need to add a item for in-camera legal at the end. Any other changes? If not, motion to accept as amended. Thank you, Councillor King. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We'll jump right into CEO update. Mr. Kim.
Good evening, Your Worship and the members of council. My CA update as of March 9th starts with health and safety. So there is one employee in isolation and another employee awaiting their test result for COVID. All other employees are reporting healthy as of March 7th. The town received an average of 12 in-person customer visits and 25 inquiries a day. We are currently looking into opening the town hall front counter to general public 5 days a week. Municipal Planning Commission approved 2 home-based businesses, a bulk fuel and chemical distribution storage, an asphalt plant, and offices in the C5 district. The Planning and Development Department has received 21 phone calls and 147 emails, issued 2 development permits, and met with Big Fish Bay for their marina project. Fire department received total 9 calls last week, including 1 structure fire. The fire department also hosted multi-emergency agency meeting to coordinate the efforts during the fire season. The tender for Glory Land project was closed on last Thursday, March the 4th, and the tender for Lift Sea Station Force Main will close this Thursday, March the 11th. The project team also submitted a grant application for Canada Healthy Communities Initiative grant. We have also started the Rennie Hall improvement project, along with downtown sidewalk, pedestrian trail connecting downtown to the lake, and Main Street improvements. Our economic development has been busy with survey result compilation, as well as preparation for the new transportation survey. Our peace officers responded to 7 calls in the past week that ranged from parking, animal control, snow removal, and unsightly premises. We are ready to fill water in the swimming pool starting on this Thursday. The project will be completed by the end of April. Seniors income tax clinics start this week and run until April 30th in the lobby of the town office by appointment. In the past week, our facility workers have completed total 102 tasks and work orders. Alberta Health Services has increased the space they'll be leasing in the old fire hall, which brings additional $500 revenue per month. Walking track times continue to be popular, and Walk Your Way to Fitness is open for registration starting this Tuesday, March the 9th. And that concludes my presentation, Your Worship.
Okay, questions from council? Councillor Busk.
Since Gary's here, maybe he can help me out as well. How's the hockey practices and stuff doing over at the MRC? I've talked to a few of the parents and they say the kids are adapting and they're doing well and they're loving the chance to get back on the ice.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Things seem to be going well. We've had a few bumps along the way, but we've kind of worked our way through those, and things are going reasonably well over there.
And sorry, just to add on to that. So has Susan's Kitchen been able to put out a few tables to have some sit-in dining or are they still doing the?
So they're still doing curbside pickup, but that was a conversation that we've been having with Susan's Kitchen since the start. And it was working with them. They're the ones that said they prefer to do the curbside pickup only. So it certainly is, it helps us with managing the people within the building as well, because we can't allow for people just to gather, right? So that side of it, it does help the town's perspective, but they seem to be happy with just doing the pickup piece.
Okay. Other questions from council? Gary, along that lines there, so kind of what is the, I had some of those user groups contact me. They were talking about, extending seasons and what we could do and how that would work. What is your guys' plan in regards to ice?
So we have told our user groups that we would make a decision by March 31st. Kind of need to see what the next round of restrictions are going to be. If we look at 3 weeks from March 1st, that takes us to March 22nd. Hopefully that there would be some sort of announcement or some sort of guidance from the province around the next wave. Then we'd also have to do a quick evaluation of who's interested. The last time we surveyed user groups, there were some groups that were interested, but of course, no one wants to pay extra fees for spring ice. We know that our costs go up by our bylaw. Ice after the end of April, going into May, is double price. So we would have to deal with that. Either they pay double, or it has to come back to you for council consideration to amend that. So we'll be evaluating that as we go over the next few weeks. I don't have a concrete answer because, like I said, it depends on restrictions, and it depends on really how many users are interested in the ice too.
Okay, so looking to evaluate at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And so normally we'd be pulling out at the end of March, but we're going to evaluate and see what the world looks like.
Exactly. We have commitment until mid-April anyways, because of minor hockey and the Ice Dogs are running their programs, 6-week programs from the beginning of March. So that takes them into mid-April.
Okay. Other questions, comments from council? Mr. Kim, we were joking about it here just before the meeting started, but the amount of times there that the lights go out at the intersection of Highway 2 and Main Street is like crazy lately. Can we reach out to MCON and see if they need any help? Because it isn't the town isn't responsible for that. It's them, but maybe there's some parts or something that we can share and get that thing working.
Your worship, I already talked to the staff to contact Alberta Transportation.
Okay.
And we'll get back to you with what's going on.
Sounds
And
great.
hopefully we'll fix it before we get back to you. So
Hopefully. Councillor Busk.
And I don't know if anybody else has driven down Highway 88 lately, but it is totally beat up. I know they did try to do some fixing last fall, but it's the turning lane onto Highway 2 off of 88 again. It's got the same big holes from the heavy traffic and stuff like that. And it's just disastrous. So let's make sure we keep on these guys to try and get this fixed as soon as possible.
So your worship, to the council, yes, along with traffic signal, we'll have a chat with, again, Alberta Transportation about the potholes on the Highway 88.
David, can you dig into transportation too, like administration to administration? And I still don't know for the life of me, I guess we can talk about this later because it's in the minister's report, but for the life of me, I still don't know the 14 kilometers that they are supposed to pave as part of the contract that went out last year that they tendered and was awarded. I don't know where the 14 kilometers is. I know it's around Slave Lake. They say it's on Highway 2. I've heard different things. It goes east, it goes west. It's all west of town. It's whatever. Can we ask somebody for a map to actually illustrate what that looks like? Perfect. Because obviously it's going to need some more lobbying and advocacy from us, and we need to be clear about what we're advocating for. So, okay. Any other questions from council? Councillor King.
I just want to reiterate what Councillor Busk was saying. I drove down there today from the bridge heading towards Highway 2 to 6th Ave is horrid and a really bad safety issue at this point because they're going almost onto the walking trail to get around these massive it's not even potholes at this point. The road is missing.
Okay, it's noted.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from council? As I see none, we'll jump into the rest of the agenda. So the first one is a summary of crime reduction, and Gary Roth is here to speak on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we have put together a report, and I say we because Staff Sergeant Rossett had his input into this report as well. Put together a report kind of outlining what we've done from an administrative and council perspective. This doesn't count for the RCMP or peace officers' day-to-day operational kinds of activities, because certainly they're doing things every day around crime reduction and crime prevention. So just a couple quick highlights out of that. In 2019, of course, the motion was passed to pursue enhanced authorities for our peace officers. And of course, that has been very slow to unroll on the provincial scale. In 2019, of course, we also had a meeting with the Solicitor General and Justice Minister, and a number of issues were brought forward at that point in time. The government has only made progress on one of those issues, and that's the scrap metal registry, scrap metal dealer registry legislation, which was passed, came into effect on November 1st of last year. And then, of course, council also had lots of conversation around public surveillance cameras. To myself and Staff Sergeant Rossett, we put together a list of ideas, and this is intended for council input and conversation, since this is a committee of the whole, around some things that could have impact into helping reduce crime in Slave Lake that we haven't explored necessarily so far. So the first one is crime prevention through environmental design. This is something that other communities have explored and have done some work around. So you take either a police member or a other staff member, could be a peace officer, have them trained with the CEPTED training, and then they can work with local businesses to help make physical improvements to their property to help reduce crime issues. They can only make recommendations, and it's still up to the business owner to make those changes, but they would have training that they would be able to look at the lighting and the sight lines and shrubbery and those kinds of things to be able to make recommendations. Another one that I know is kind of near and dear to a lot of municipalities right now is requesting a public inquiry around the judicial interim release program. So judicial interim release is the legal term for bail hearing. And it's also what I know a lot of people in their communities are calling the catch and release program, because the way the system is operating right now, of course, judicial interim releases are granted very frequently. And that's one of the concerns that, we're hearing in the community. The third idea, which is actually a very low cost item as well, is setting up a safe exchange zone outside of the RCMP detachment. In fact, the RCMP are moving forward with this one already. And it's basically signs that indicate a parking location where you can come. And if you're selling an item, let's say, and another person's buying it, instead of having them do the exchange in your home or at a coffee shop or something, it's a safe location. Typically, it deters the fraudsters because they're not going to want to go in front of the detachment, park it, take someone's money and disappear. It also works really well for custodial child custody exchanges, to have it done adjacent, right next to the police station. The next one, of course, is more just a note, is just around continued advocacy for any of these items and working with AUMA and using staff and administration to help advance those causes. Next one that Staff Sergeant Rossett and I talked about was continued emphasis on traffic enforcement. It's one thing to have photo enforcement, but it's also good to be having police officers and peace officers stopping vehicles, talking to the drivers of those vehicles, seeing who's in those vehicles. Just the red and blue lights alone is a visible deterrent. And so there's been much more conversation about having more joint forces operations, or JFOs. So that's a peace officer and RCMP combining their resources to work together on some traffic issues. Bike patrols was talked about with council at budget time, but certainly the RCMP have indicated that they would love to be able to partner up to do some more of that, work with our peace officers around that. And then the other issue that comes up from time to time is just the scheduling of our peace officers. We know that they work predominantly Monday to Friday day shift. because that's when the phone tends to ring and the calls for service tend to come in. There's been times where we've worked outside of those hours and it's been effective. It's been effective because people aren't expecting those extra eyes and ears out on the road. Just more recently, we've had one of the peace officers had an accommodation type issue where he did work some different hours, and it catches people by surprise. I'm not saying it catches the bad guys by surprise, but it just catches people in general by surprise that there's a peace officer working when they normally wouldn't be. So we can certainly look at the shift scheduling and look what we can to provide some variety there. So those were just some ideas and topics that came out, and then the intent was to bring this forward to hear what council has to say as well, and go from there.
Okay, questions, comments from council? Councillor Busk.
Thanks, Gary. I always want to say that anything and everything that we can do to help curb crime is greatly appreciated. I'm all for new and innovative ideas. If you guys can keep up the good work, that'd be great, because there's still a lot of businesses and residents in our community that have felt violated, have felt, I guess, threatened because their property has been stolen, their houses have been broken into, and anything that we can do to ease that burden on our community is much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor King and then Councillor Ferguson.
I appreciate all this thought, Gary. I really like this safe exchange zone, both for child custody and buy and sell matters. I also like the public inquiry route. I'm very in favor of going down that road. I also like the first one, crime prevention through environmental design. I think that would be good for our industrial businesses and our downtown businesses. I like it. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson.
So in regards to point number 2, sometimes you see, like in the cities, when a prolific offender or a serious offender has been released, they do a public news release on it. Is that something that has been given consideration in our area to let the public know?
That would be something I'd have to chat with Staff Sergeant Reset around. I know the RCMP have different rules in terms of how they do their media releases. Having said that, though, I know that they do, certainly do put out media releases of that nature in other communities. So something we could certainly talk about.
And then into regards to point 6. So I understand that carding was banned in November of 2020, but street checks is a mechanism that exists. I'm wondering if that's something that's been given consideration for the area as well.
So the RCMP does have a system for street checks built into their process or their programming. And certainly it's a very similar type of system involved with the peace officers program, the software that they use. It's really just a matter of knowing who you've talked to at whatever time on whatever location, right? And not really carding like it was in the old days, but it was certainly, it's just a note that I talked to Joe on such a corner, such a location, right? So
Okay, Councillor McGregor.
Just wondering, we had citizens, holy smokes, this microphone's loud. We'd had citizens on patrol started and some headway being made last year. Do we know where that's at or what's going on with that?
I am not sure. That would be a question for Staff Reset, and I can ask him.
I can help out a little bit with that, in that my wife's on the committee, and due to COVID, they were having a problem meeting and stuff like that to get the necessary training to be able to push the program out. And they've been able to find somebody that is willing to do it online, and they should be having some kind of training starting up here shortly. So hopefully by this late spring to early summer, that they should be able to be out and patrolling.
I have one more question. Then is there a chance to maybe, meet and have another meeting with the Minister of Justice before this term ends? Or where are we at with that?
Yeah, there's a possibility.
There's a
there.
possibility?
And some of that discussion,
Coming up,
we're gonna have in,
the next section?
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
we'll go into that in more detail. So I see no more questions, comments. So a couple of things. Crime prevention through environmental design. So basically, this leads to that there would be training. So is this something that we're exploring? You need a motion from council to do it. What are our options? And can there be a community education component to it, not just training our peace officers, but something that we can take out, especially to the industrial community as well?
Absolutely. So I have experience when I worked for the city of Grand Prairie. The city of Grand Prairie pursued this and had staff that were trained. So the training is readily available. Generally, it comes up either through Edmonton or Calgary Police Service. And because it's through another municipal police service, usually the cost is relatively, is pretty reasonable. The only thing would be the travel accommodations type of thing. Chatting with our peace officers, we feel that it could likely fit within our current training budget that we already have. We have a little bit of extra room in our training budget for something. And yes, and certainly there is a couple of pieces to it. When you unroll it, you want to advertise, you want to let people know that it's what it's about, that this service is available, those types of things. You don't want to just train someone and have that information and knowledge sit on a shelf. We want to unroll it. We want to make it a bit of a public program and certainly have some of the information available. So yes, there would definitely be a public ed type of program.
So you are pursuing this and it's coming?
It's yes.
Okay. I'm very interested in number 2. And so that being said, I don't know what the heck it means. So is it possible that administration can look into bringing back some information on what are our options as a municipality or public members or whatever else when it comes to inquiry, both from a specific standpoint and from a generic standpoint? And so, our frustration has been the catch and release, and that's, the best term there for it, that people that do get arrested don't seem to stay arrested for very long. And some of them make it to court and some of them don't even make it that far. And then the ones that do don't seem to stay there for very long, or there doesn't seem to have a lot of impact there. So I'm very curious as to what our options are. And so I'd like to make a motion that administration bring back a report with options for municipalities and public members in regards to specific and general inquiries of the Solicitor General's office. Because it's something we've had those conversations as council or whatever, but if administration could kind of do some homework there and figure out exactly what our options are, we definitely want to dig into that rabbit hole. Motion on the floor, any discussion on that? Call the question, those in favor? That's carried. Once again, I think the RCMP Safe Exchange Zone is pretty cool. It's something that we saw on our social media, so I'm curious if that's how it came about or whatever else. Sometimes there's some good that comes from social media. Yeah, and I have seen too, and I had noticed over the last 2 weeks that our peace officers must have had a staggered schedule a little bit, because I saw them more in the evenings and doing some stuff and some Saturdays. And so I think it's great to mix up that schedule. And I think it's great to have that presence, it's all about presence and what's out there. So I think keep up that good work if that's what we can keep doing. I had no other questions, comments. I'm excited for some information on number 2 when it's available.
Yeah.
Councillor Busk.
Make a motion that councillor sees this report as information.
Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? That's carried. In summary too, I don't want to make light of the fact, Gary, that I know that you guys have done a ton of work there, and so has our RCMP. As council, we're very passionate about this item as well. We've looked at camera systems, we've looked at scheduling, we've looked at, the RCMP has taken a role to look at their admin and how they schedule and duties, and in an effort to keep officers more out there. Our staff sergeant recently talked about getting members out in the community more. We've been working with the industrial people. I know RCMP is piloting and kind of moving forward, and we're very thankful that these community members have stepped up to do a board for Citizens on Patrol. Sometimes we forget to recognize how much stuff we've already done. So I just want to say thanks to all those that have been championing that, but we also recognize there's still lots of work left to do. Okay, we'll jump into Council Code of Conduct Policy Review. So there's no real report with this. This is something that, to be honest, we probably, you get a copy of this when you first get elected. We haven't looked at it a long time, and a lot of our discussions in the past have been about the committee of the whole, which is a discussion type meeting. There to review some policies and things that are out there. And so I thought about bringing this one forward to see if there was any pieces in there that we felt we should change. It's probably good to kind of equip the next council with the right idea of what they should be doing and should not. The premise of the Council Code of Conduct policy really focuses on, how a councillor, how an elected official, technically mayor's councillor as well, how elected official talks, acts, dresses, and behaves, and then obviously areas of caution. And so the only real big area of caution when it comes to an elected official is around conflict of interest. And so then when it comes to conflict of interest, there's a legal side of things, and the legal side of things says, you have a conflict of interest only if there's a pecuniary interest involved, meaning that you could financially benefit or stand to lose from the decisions that you make in a very specific term. So, there is leeway obviously for things like budget and taxes. We're all impacted by taxes. Well, we all live in this community, but it is geared towards more specific items. I also remind council that there's always a perceived conflict of interest as well, right? We live in a small town, and if our business interests, if our family members are involved, all those different items, that is something to be aware of as well. And I always caution councillors that if there's even a slight hesitation, you're always better to declare one than not declare one, which is kind of ironic because there's also a piece built in the MGA, and it's in this Council Code of Conduct, that if you're able to make a decision, you have to make a decision. And so we haven't really been in an issue, but there was councils in other areas and in history where they want to abstain from making a vote and a decision all the time. Luckily, I've never had that experience while we've been on council. We always have passionate people that are here for that kind of reason. So the only other ones in here talked about some issues with dress code, and it's pretty generic right now that basically, come looking presentable and you're neat and tidy and that sort of thing. It doesn't get into specific that we have to have a collars or not have collars or how you dress or whatever else. Respect for others, respect for administration, how we conduct ourselves in those meetings, and the comments and items that we make don't have a negative impact on the organization or that individual. And then, bring up the one about no use of offensive language. It's probably something I could work on myself behind the scenes, and I will continue to do that. So a lot of this was a bit of a reminder, but I did want to open it up for council for any comments. They think there's any tweaks that we need to be made. Is there any more teeth that needed to go into this? Because part of this is part of our responsibility, our duty as a council is to set up the next council for success. We looked at things, whether it be wages, whether, we set up the budget and that sort of thing. It's another area that probably we could peek in. So I think ours is pretty standard. I think it's fairly generic to what exists out there. And maybe that's good or maybe it's not. And I'll leave it up to council to add any comments at this point. Councillor McGregor.
So I went through this one and looked. So I guess number 4 for the policy objectives is protect the individual rights of council and administration as normal citizens. So something we had talked about last year was even some different new council training. So something as simple as having separate social media accounts when you become a councillor from a council account versus a personal account or something. When I dealt with some stuff, it was a very good suggestion brought by a communications expert, I guess is what I would call them. And actually explaining, though, we don't live in the city. We don't live in Calgary. We don't live where there's 2 million people. We live in a town of 6,500 people. And as normal citizens or just regular citizens, people need to know when they're signing up for this job that it all gets intermingled really, really quickly. And I think for new people coming to council, maybe there's something we can do. Like I would encourage people that want to become counselors to talk to current counselors, especially about things about time consideration, different committees that we're required to put your name forward. Some of them take 2 or 3 years to just know all the federal rules, then the provincial rules, then another department and another ministry's rules. And so, maybe just some really good training for that. When I was a trustee, we went to Trustee University and we had people from the U of A come and we spent a weekend learning things like communication, how to respond back, how to deal with certain situations, how to have an elevator speech. Things like that you get put into predicaments and needing some help. So I find this one to be hard. As normal citizens, that's a really tough one when you're a counselor and a normal citizen. So maybe we need to look at something there. My other one, of course, was, like you said, no use of offensive language. So, I've reined myself in the last 8 years of being in politics. You can ask people in High Prairie, I can slam my fist down and probably go through the dictionary and not use one word that wasn't offensive. But also understanding that when people get really passionate or there's some really excitement in it, or there's a lot of anger or a lot of sadness, that a slip of a word that may be offensive is not, worth like writing someone up and giving them a file. We got to really pay attention. Now, if we came to a council meeting every Tuesday night and we bucked off every word that we know from driving a truck, I agree, it's not right. But I think we just need to be cautious, that we're not going to do that. And no personal attacks on fellow council members. So I don't know if we need to either maybe change some wording or look, I'm not sure. I tried to find out when the last time this was updated, but maybe something about more active listening or not having such closed ears and listening, something maybe along those lines. Our professional dress, I agree. You can come, but I think we also, have a line there too of if people just get off their regular job and they're just unzipping their coveralls at 6:47 outside in their truck and putting them on, they might have not worn something like that under their coveralls that day. So just sort of, paying attention to who we represent and who we have representing us is important in that one. And then that was my other one under standards was the respect for the right of others and to their opinions. So that's more maybe where not having closed ears or some more active listening, maybe some either those words or maybe we don't even need to change the words. Maybe we just need to have a really good conversation when you have a new council coming in, going over this and having this some good looks. But I do think that a bit of training, even an overview of what all the committees are that you're on. I've never been on housing or SDA be. So, I wouldn't be able to give a good idea of that, but I've been on the library, I've been on health. So someone looking to come and be a counselor, you could give them some good insight of what it's required being on that committee, the trust, the respect, like those kind of things that people have worked ahead of you to build that you don't want to break in a small community. So those were just some of the ones that I had highlighted and just some of my thoughts on that.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Councillor Ferguson.
Councillor McGregor, were you speaking like prior to somebody running for council as like a training session, or were you speaking after the fact?
Well, kind of both, but definitely after the fact. But like encouraging people to reach out, and then you might need to change your social media accounts before you do to, lighten your load, takes people off, do what you need to do. Only posting certain things.
Lighten your load.
Lighten your load. Only posting certain things. Like, you have your personal account and it's just your personal, because when you start sharing things from the town, sharing things from Alberta Health Services, sharing things on the news, those kind of things, sometimes it gets really intermingled, right? This is your personal opinion? Is this the opinion you have because I pay your wages? For someone like me that's worked for tax-paying dollars for 20 years, I've always gotten paid by people's tax-paying dollars. So, I've done a good job at not, taking advantage of that. But it's different. And I think some of that needs to be done before some people decide to run, and definitely some training when they do run. I think it's important.
Okay. So then a follow-up to my question, maybe somebody here knows it. What is the training or the mandated training that exists right now after somebody's elected?
So as part of the MGA, there's a thing built into it that says that elected officials have to have training after that you're elected, but there's not a specific thing. So AUMA does offer some items, but the MGA is vague just to say that you have to have training. Now, in the last couple of times, our administration has a binder and stuff that they've sat down and went through people. A number of you would have went through it. I sat in on some of that portion or whatever else to kind of talked about council's expectations or whatever else, but realistically it's on my head. So it would be good to formalize something. And it would probably be great for us to have a discussion, because that's one thing. Like when Councillor Busk and I started at the same time, I felt like there was no training whatsoever. And I largely felt that way because there was no training whatsoever.
Right.
And so it was something I was quite passionate about as we went along, that, they have to have something. And so we started to add some pieces there, whatever else. But for a feature, because training is one thing and that's different from your council code of conduct, right? But it does present a good topic. And so maybe at a future committee of the whole, can we bring out, because technically, Joanna, you're going to be one of the ones that help lead through this. So why don't we pull that binder off, blow some dust off of it, bring it and say, okay, let's sit down as a group and say, okay, this is what it looks like. And let's have some discussion about, these are the pieces that are missing, right? Because you really need to treat the system like we're all gone, right? Because even if we all want to stay, the public might tell us to pound sand. So we really need to set up the system so that there is some continuity. And so, Joey, to your point there, when you talked about the committees too, committees are a big part of it. People don't understand. We meet the first 3 Tuesdays of the month, which seems like a lot, and it is. But then you have all these other committees, and there's 10, 11, 12. I don't even know how many there is. And those meet at all different frequencies and whatever. And so, if you look in the as part of our organizational meeting, so once a year we look at who sits on those committees and that sort of stuff. There's a 2-sentence description of each one, but maybe the chairs of those committees or people that have been chair or whatever else could do a little bit more elaborate piece to say, this is what this committee is about. This is why it was created. This is kind of the history of what's gone on and that sort of stuff, to have a bit of a one-pager that was in there, so that when those people do get elected, that they can see and they can scroll through that. And then you have a little bit more information, because we go to the organizational meeting, it's bam, 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 which one do you want? Let's vote, and that's it, and away you go. And it's way better than it was when I started. At least now you actually have a chance to even speak up and say why you want that committee. We didn't even do that before. So I think having those pieces in, and even in that organizational meeting, Joanna, if we're not all here, that there should be that the chair of that meeting or whoever the mayor is at that point or whatever else, has that piece built in, that there should be an expectation that those people have a chance to advocate for why they're there and how that process works. So I think we should look at that as a whole, bring it back, have a good discussion. It's a great committee of the whole thing, see what pieces are missing and whatever else. Yeah, like I would love to do that. So let's put that one on the note that, so motions, we're all about motions here. So make a motion that administration bring back the newly elected official training package.
So orientation by board or council members.
Orientation member package from orientation
Package for council.
package. Okay, so make a motion that package comes to council at a future committee of the whole for discussion, as well as the organizational meeting and any policy that exists for it. Because I guarantee you that'll just have like one little blurb, and we should have a thing that talks about the format and how that works. Okay, so addressing that piece on training, and that wouldn't be part of this, but there's another topic I want to get into here in a second. But now, while that motion's on the floor, any more discussion on that one? Call the question, those in favor? That's carried, so that will come to another one. But to Joyce's point about the whole social media communication and how we communicate, we do have a communications policy. And so there's some points in there, but it wouldn't hurt to reiterate some pieces in ours about how we communicate as council members. Largely because of, from the social media perspective, that, should we have two profiles as an example, like when you speak for that, is it something, because there's 2 points to it. Point number one is that it should be a bit formalized what you can and can't do, what's expected and what's not expected, that something should exist for that. And that should be well known by council members before they start tapping away on their keyboards and changing the world. On the other flip side though, to Joyce's point earlier there, Councilor McGregor, that we're not 2 million people. We are 6,500 and we all just live here. So I can pretend that, hey, that's my personal page. I can say whatever I want on my personal page. But as we know, that's not the way the world works. So for me, I think it's less about that and just some reminders built into this about how we communicate, what's acceptable, what's not, what we say about each other and whatever. That, I just kind of wanted to open this as a discussion point and really wasn't sure where it was going. But now that we're having this discussion, it wouldn't hurt to dig into some other municipalities and see what their code of conduct looks like and maybe compare it to ours and see if there's some pieces that are missing. This is something we have to figure out today. But it would be nice if administration could bring back, some other council code of conduct policies and see if there's some pieces that we could add. Is kind of my first thought. And before I make a motion on that, I shouldn't just keep throwing up motions here. Let's finish some discussion and then make some motions. Councillor King, you had something.
That was on my list for our new communications person to come in, just even as us as council. So maybe that could possibly be something thrown right on their list.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Councillor Gramlich.
David, what is the town's code of dress code? What is the town staff? Do you know that out of your head or no? Is it something that matches this, or is it more in depth?
It's more detailed.
I feel like ours should at least mirror theirs. If ours is pretty vague and they're being asked to dress accordingly, we should set an example and at least mirror the town. So David's not dealing with staff saying, well, why did town council get to dress like that? And you're telling me I can't wear my $200 ripped jeans or whatever may pop up. But that's my 2 cents.
Well, my 2 cents is if I have to start wearing shoes in summer, I'm going to have a problem. But okay, but bring those pieces as all part of our thing. So make a motion that administration bring back an updated council code of conduct policy And I'll leave it just at that, I would encourage them to look at some other municipalities and make some suggestions and so on and so forth. Any discussion on that? Call the question, those in favor? That is carried. Okay. If there's nothing else on that one, we'll jump into a letter from Minister of Municipal Affairs, verbal discussion. So essentially, we got back an email from the Minister of Municipal Affairs. For those that don't remember, basically, after we expressed to the province a number of our frustrations with our MLA and lack of representation, they did basically said, send us a list of some of the items that were areas of concern, and they want to look into them. You know, what's unique about our list, I think, compared to a lot of municipalities, is a lot of the stuff we keep advocating for and fighting for actually isn't municipal responsibilities, it's all provincial. So we're just drawing attention to weaknesses within their own departments that exist in our region or in our community, whether it be highways or healthcare or justice and so on and so forth. So that being said, while I appreciate that the minister took time to send this back, he did CC a bunch of the other ministers from the ministries that obviously they're involved in. But one of the things is that we used to get a bit of FaceTime there with AUMA. It was an opportunity to meet with some of these ministers, voice some of our concerns. You know, we met with the Minister of Health 2 years ago to talk about some of the stuff with ambulance. We met with Solicitor General probably 18 months ago to talk about some of these things or whatever else, and haven't had the opportunity to do it again. And so I think it's part of it. We can sit over here in our chairs in these little plastic cubicles and wait for them to come knocking, or we can get up out of these cubicles with our mask on and start knocking on somebody else's door. And so I think it's overdue to do some of that. And so, like, you know, if we take them one by one, as an example, you know, we've got this issue with the ambulance bay. It's something that's been going on for a number of years that we keep advocating for. We've been told, and they've identified in some of their previous correspondence here recently, was that it is their number one capital investment in the North Zone. And so even having them declaring that, I got to tell you, after 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 years or whatever we're at now, maybe it's more than, actually, I think this is before the fire, so we're probably over 10 now. That in itself is a victory. So our next piece should be strategically to go back to them and say, well, listen, if we're number one, you should have it. There's got to be a capital plan that you have for 2021 or a capital plan for 2022. Like they mandate that we have to have a 3-year budget. You know, theoretically, they should at least have one. That, you know, I think we should request a meeting with the Minister of Health, as well as to include Alberta Health is one that's kind of a silly little system there, because there's Alberta Health and there's Alberta Health Services, and there's 2 different departments. Any other ministry we deal with wouldn't do this, but we need to make sure that we get the right people, that we have people from both sides of the coin there, to say kind of what is the plan forward, and at least that we get all the right people in the room to have it top of mind and see where it goes. And so Alberta Health would be the government side of it, that does the funding and so on and so forth. And Alberta Health Services is more the operational arm, the one that actually carries those pieces out. But I think it'd be nice to have a meeting with all of them. And so I'd like to make a motion that that administration request a meeting with the Ministry of Alberta Health, as well as, I believe his name is off the top of my head, I believe it's Marty Scott, but double check that and see. From Alberta, Marty Scott and representatives from Alberta Health Services, to understand where investment in new ambulance bay infrastructure in Slave Lake. Did I say will or when? What do I got there?
Request a meeting with the Ministry of Alberta Health, like Marty Scott, representatives from Alberta Health Services, to understand where.
And when, where and when will occur. So we'll basically send a letter to both of them, say that, hey, we want to set up a meeting. Let's have some discussion. Let's try and move these things forward. I don't care if it's Zoom. I don't care if it's in person. But let's start knocking on the door a little harder here and see if we can get something going.
but if possible, in person,
Agreed,
I will meet them.
agreed.
Right, we could make a whole trip to the city for a day and meet that minister while they're in Calumet. I mean, like, really easily right now, this, to get the final push.
Yeah, and so the only hesitation I have there is that if there's an opportunity to meet with them virtually next week, or they say wait till June when we can all meet together, like let's meet next week virtually and get her done.
100%, and again, June.
And again in June, fair enough.
I think it might take long roads.
Other comments or discussion on that items, motions on the floor? Any discussion, call the question, those in favor? That's carried. So Alberta Health Services check. Police funding, this was around, the comment in ours was around the, around the police funding model. And so there's a couple of points, policing, we talk about it in generic terms. The catch and release one is a frustration for us. We've already talked about this in our other pieces. I think actually before we meet with the minister or start knocking on his door, I really would like to travel down this rabbit hole of the inquiry piece. We've had some discussions behind the scenes with AUMA and some other municipalities, and I kind of want to flush those things out before we go knocking on the door. I think if we can coordinate a response, we're going to be way more effective than just having another meeting with the minister to say the same thing. I also don't think anything that we are saying is going to be new to them or eye-opening. What we need to do instead is show them how committed and frustrated we are with the current situation, and see what, and through that process, maybe there is solutions that we'll identify by talking with our neighbors, by talking with other municipalities, by talking with RCMP and so on and so forth. So I think that we've already set that ball in motion, and Joanna's setting up some meetings to do that. So I kind of feel like let's park that one. We're going to chase it, but we're not ready to meet with the ministry yet. Other thoughts? Comments? Feel like we're on the right path there. People are nodding and nobody's saying anything, so I'm going to go with yes. Housing. So housing, that one actually behind the scenes, Councillor Brando, who leads the Housing Authority, and other members that sit on the Housing Committee, have been having meetings with the Housing Ministry, and I've been included on some of those calls, and our most recent one was actually last week in regards to kind of the last step. So the province has an idea of what the box should look like when it comes to housing in Slave Lake. Us as members of the community have a little bit different idea of what it should look like, and so that has been the contentious pushback. We're kind of on the last step of that, where the government wants to try one more step here. My first thought is, are you kidding me? Here we go again, and let's keep kicking the ball down the road. But I do really feel like they're running out of chances to say no. And so I don't think that this next piece, and I can't talk about it because it's a RFP type thing that's going out or whatever else. And as per my meeting last week, I can't lead anything out. And maybe it's already published already. I don't even know yet. It's coming. They were saying that it should be out this week sometime. I don't expect it to be very fruitful, and hopefully we'll see some traction. And the push that we've been putting behind the scenes is that if this step doesn't work, and this step will probably take, there's 2 to 3 weeks of advertising. They got to evaluate if they actually get any proposals back, and so on and so forth. But I realistically think here by partway into the spring that they'll either have an option or recognize that ours is the only option. And so I am confident that this ball that we keep pushing up the hill we're almost to the top here. So I don't think we really need another meeting with the minister. I think the Housing Authority is doing a fantastic job of championing that one. And what's great about that one is it involves more than just the town. The MD is involved. There's members of the public from on that board, and even our MD of Opportunity up north. So I think we just let them keep doing their thing, and we'll see where we're at in a few weeks. Thoughts, comments, dittos? Everybody's nodding, so I think we're on the right path. Parks. Parks is a little more exciting. So we had a meeting I think it was just me. Me and Murray were championing a meeting with Parks here back in December about our frustration in regards to bird observatory. Took that opportunity to voice some concerns as well about the beach and the park in general and investment and infrastructure. And the big piece around it was like, listen, we're really big on economy. We're really big on tourism. We're big on economic growth. And we want to understand where we need to go. The big problem there is that, when it comes to development, speaking very high level, I think Slave Lake on this east end of the basin there, we have great, huge tourism potential. And we'll talk about Big Fish Bay here in a little while here, that, we're starting to see some traction there. But the biggest piece that's missing is, the infrastructure to actually enjoy the stuff that is here. And unfortunately, we have two issues. And issue number one is that, the biggest chunk of land that where infrastructure investment makes the most sense is actually provincially done. It's in the park. And so we don't have a lot of access there. Additionally, it's technically not even in the town of Slave Lake. It's in the MD. And so we have some components there. So we had talked and got the ministry to commit to having some discussions here in the spring about the future of the park and so on and so forth. Cal McLeod, who's the administrative person on that side, was there, but so was the, I got to go back and think, Pam or Patty there. She's the assistant deputy minister, or she's the chief of staff. We'll figure that piece out, but it's prudent to bug them for a meeting and get something set up where we have some discussions about the beach, where we have some discussions about the park, where we have some discussions about infrastructure and investment, and really knock hard on that door and try and get them to commit to heading in some direction whatsoever. And so, like I said, we had that meeting in December and they talked about committing getting back to us in about February. Now that we're in March and haven't heard anything, I think we should go knock on that door ourselves. And so I would basically make a motion that we task administration to set up a meeting with the Ministry of Environment and Parks, as well as their administration, to discuss the future of the provincial park, of the Lesser Slave Lake Provincial Park, and the amenities that currently exist in it. Because one of the pieces is the bird observatory there, the province was supposed to take credit for this and no one has. And so I'm going to say it now, but basically we got them to lobby them hard to, with actually investment from private. So the mills stepped up. We're throwing some money into a pot of money to keep the bird observatory open during the winter, because basically, last year they decided, okay, we're going to close it for 6 months of the year. And we said, well, we still live here 12 months of the year. We encourage tourism 12 months of the year. We encourage people to come 12 months of the year. Our students, our children, our youth, our communities use this thing 12 months of the year. And so it came all about a $55,000 item. 30,000 of it basically came, or 35,000 of it, Mills stepped up and said they were doing as a one-time thing. And the MD was even going to help with snow removal out in their parking lot to try and move things along. And the announcement was supposed to be that they were going to get the bird observatory open. Of course, a couple of days later in December, that the world decided we're all going to shut down again. So that really hasn't gone anywhere. I know that they are renting out stuff. I know the staff is still out there, but that facility technically isn't open. We are coming to the season where it would open anyway, so it becomes a bit of a moot point. I was on my understanding the MLA was going to announce that at some point and never have. But getting back into the discussion, the point is that the funding and the operation of that really hasn't been determined for 2021, 2022 season. And so I really want to dig into that one. We want to understand what their commitment is on the beach and what it's not. We've had some private contractors talk about us, about opportunities to be invested in the beach. We've talked to them about infrastructure investment and future items that they want. And there's some other ministries that exist out there, whether it be economic development, tourism and trade. Is there some opportunities in some of the grant funding there that we can use money that exists in that ministry to further something in another ministry. And so I really want to dig into those discussions, but it needs to involve the MD as well. So we need to make sure that they are invited as part of that. And so we need to make sure that that's an item 2 for the intermissible discussion on Monday. Well, I got it at the top of my head and we don't forget. Parks. So anyways, that's a big long-winded thing. Councillor Ferguson, I know you want to jump in there.
Yeah, so just a question. So I noticed last year, the government put out an announcement that they were looking at unique partnerships with municipalities and agencies regarding provincial parks. I'm wondering if we can look at trying to get some more information from the provincial government in regards to that, what that looks like, those partnership opportunities. Maybe there's a win-win situation for the province and the town here to permanently enhance the status of Devonshire Beach in the provincial park.
Yeah, we'll make sure that prior to that meeting, we have them bring some of that information to the meeting so we can understand what that looks like and what opportunities exist. I know, speaking to that point, we talked about like Sylvan Lake in the past, they had done something there to kind of take control of their beach and are now getting the funding from the province for it. I don't think that's the typical scenario that's out there, and they had a unique opportunity there. So we're gonna have to see, is there something there, an angle there that we can pursue as well? The big problem with all of this stuff is that, are we just buying somebody else's responsibility all the time? And so, versus us versus them, I think what's needed more, and I stressed to the ministry when we had a discussion with them in December, was that, listen, I think we're part of the solution, and it shouldn't just be you guys that have to figure out everything. It should be us that has to figure out everything. So let's start with some discussions where we're both on the same page and understand what each other are doing. And if you guys are investing in signage or boardwalks or campgrounds or whatever else, that we're aware of that stuff to see if there's other value added pieces that we can add as a municipality or as a tri-council, as an intermunicipal committee or whatever else, that only add to the potential for this region. And so I think that's where, it's in the spirit of cooperation, but it's time to get out of the same box as existed for 20 years or 50 years or whatever it is.
Agreed. One more comment too.
Yeah.
We know summer's right around the corner, so I wonder if it'd be beneficial to ask them in a formal letter what their maintenance plan is for Devonshire Beach this year, lest it, be left by the wayside and there's no grooming done on it this year, which would be very unfortunate. We know a lot of people with a tough year with COVID and everything are looking forward to our prize jewel, our beach. So it'd be nice to have it in a immaculate condition.
Okay. So in our letter that we send out to them, Joanna, we want to capture that we want to understand what their maintenance plan is for next year. Additionally, we want to understand their capital investment for next year. Additionally, we want to understand their capital investment plan on a future go forward basis. I bring that up because I know that they have like stuff that they've had sitting there for 20 years of, this is their plan for the whole region, but they just basically never get funding for it. It'd be nice for them to bring it, dust it off, and make sure we're all talking the same language. We want to know what the future of the Bird Observatory is and where funding is going to come for that. And we want to advocate immensely for 12 months of operation there to the public, not just to themselves. So those are the pieces that we'd throw in there, but
if I can just add to that, maintenance and grooming, please, because they might be construed as two different things.
Okay. And to Councillor Ferguson's point about possible partnership cooperation in regards to that maintenance and grooming plan or whatever else. Operation of their assets. Councillor McGregor.
And on that note too, we, as it's getting closer to summer, maybe it's something we need to remind our own locals about taking care of the beach. And I'm gonna have this plastic thing wrecked. I can see it already. But it's our beach and our responsibility, and maybe we need to do some you know, some homework on that, some social media on that. Just about talking, you know, there is garbage cans. People pick up garbage, like the parks people clean those bathrooms every single day. You know, they do a really good job of all of that kind of stuff. And I think that sometimes we don't do a really good job of pulling our end. So our beach, our community, your garbage, take it home. You know, maybe there's some kind of thing we could work on that together, because I think that if we start to take better pride in our beach along with our community, we'll go a long way taking care of our own. We're a pretty good community to do that. So I think we need to keep that in mind as well.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we got a motion on the floor to meet with Parks there. Any further discussion on that? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. So we'll send out a letter and set that one up with them. Highways. What do you even say there? Yeah, same thing for whatever. So, you know, I think at the, you know, basically the budget has been thrown out there by the provincial government. At this point, we should be able to understand what their capital investment is in 2021. So at the very least, we need to understand what did they actually tender out last year, where exactly that is, and have a map. And we should have that front center so all of our public knows what's going on there. But you know, I would request a meeting. Let's request a meeting with transportation again. You know, we've highlighted a bunch of these pictures and so on and so forth. You know, it's likely not going to happen till the spring here anyway. And we'll take some more updated pictures, because I can tell you, like Councillor King and Councillor Bust's comment there, it's only gotten worse. That we need to say, okay, Lynn, what if you aren't investing in redoing this pieces of highway, then essentially what are you doing to maintain it until you are? We shouldn't let our foot off the gas on that one. So let's ask for a meeting with the minister to discuss that. Yeah, so I make a motion that we meet with the Minister of Transportation to discuss ongoing issues regarding maintenance and investment on Highway 88, 754, and portions of Highway 2. So it was very, the minister was very, you know, in our previous discussions, is they don't want some just big generic thing. Like what sections are you talking? And so we should have some comments from our administration talking with MD administration ahead of time to figure out exactly where that line ends. So first off, we need to know what's on Highway 2, and then we can talk about where it goes from there. Like I know, you know, about the Ottawa, things start to level out a little bit better, but from Ottawa over this way, definitely some significant issues. That Mitsu divided highway where it goes off is a big, huge one, and I don't think they're investing anything over there. It looks like they're going to do a portion in here, but there's probably a portion between Widewater and where they paved onto just before Prechuck Hill and Astano there, that there's some significant stuff there that's not getting done. And then of course we got the fiasco with Highway 88, which doesn't go all the way up, but it goes to kilometer, I don't know, probably 50, 53 or something like that. We should try and define that. And then I know it's the first portion of 754 up to where then they paved further from 754 up to Wabasca, which was fine, but I don't know where that cutoff is. I want to see 42. Right. So there's some significant issues there between in the first 42 kilometers of 754 then on the southern portion. So anyways, my point is administration, we need a map, highlighted areas so we can give to them and say, this is what we're concerned about. Make sure that we got some pictures, but let's have a meeting with the minister to say, you know, what is the plan for 2021? What area exactly are you doing stuff? And if you're not investing in anything in any of the areas in regards to overlay and significant reinvestment, what are you doing to maintain them and keep them safe until then? Because I do think some of the worst portions are in the town limits here, right along from the river down here. So we need to get on that. And if they need public feedback again, we'll organize that campaign again as well, if that's what they need. So motion on the floor to meet with that ministry. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Any other things that we think we're missing at the moment? It's going to give us a few things to do and meet and talk about and work strategically on. Okay, let's get into then committee minutes. So first one, intermunicipal committee meets on Monday. So we'll have an update at the next one. Watershed.
So we met, the beginning of last month. We're working on our watershed resiliency and restoration program. Last year, it took 10 months for review and to get our grant money in. So all of our work plans right now are starting on the 2022 application. The West Prairie River riparian intactness and risk assessments in progress. We've received second and third progress reports. Water quality monitoring. We did our first ice under lake sampling, was collected the 19th and 26th of January from the west and east basins. The 2020 water quality summary report is currently in progress. The town has partnered with the watershed to monitor the Lesser Slave River in 2021. Megan has already met with our staff to discuss those plans. There's no cost to the town of Slave Lake. The additional cost of approximately $2,100 for an analytical is coming from the watershed committee. And that's about it. We're starting our Elliott Roche Memorial Bursary this year. So our staff are currently working on draft terms of reference for the committee, and the board will review and approve those. And we currently have enough to do this year's bursary. Our Kids Can Catch event was no in person this year. We did some giveaways. And that's about it.
Any questions, comments? Next, Chamber of Commerce. So they had their AGM here at the end of February where they elected a new president. And I think they got 2 vacancies or something. They're still looking for a couple more. Looking for a couple, one now extra board member for their executive. But I actually didn't make that meeting, so I'm not sure what else happened there. I know that 2 of you guys were there, and I don't know if you had anything else to add.
They're also working on the Shop Local campaign and some more information for businesses on why to join the chamber. Shop Local, why to join the chamber. New president. I think.
And Josh is new president?
Josh is the new president. Yep.
Right.
Yes. And then they were now they're missing a board member. Yeah. I think that was the gist of the AGM.
Yeah, I had a quick meeting today. We're talking about our next meeting, general meeting. We're hoping to have in person. It's the 29th. So we're waiting to see what happens. The announcement's coming out on the 22nd. So we're hoping to have it. We're planning on in person. We'll go to Zoom if we have to. That's about it.
Yeah, I just want to make a mention there before we move off of that. There, Frankie Drew has been the president now for 4 years, right? Took that job on and really jumped into it with both hands. And I know she's still part of the Chamber of Commerce, but I do want to stress that I think she did a fantastic job. And the new people coming up, Josh and Serena, will also, I'm excited by people that are very business minded and have that energy and want to bring that to it. So just want to thank Frankie for all of her hard work that I think she reinvigorated the chamber. And I'm really excited to see where the next group takes it. So let's jump into housing.
So I wasn't at the last meeting, but Councillor Brandel sent me some notes that she asked me to read off here.
Okay.
So I believe Mayor Warman was at the meeting with Minister Pond, essentially with the housing project, trying to get it moving forward. We've given the minister 3 options. So build what we can with the money we have to get that housing project off the ground. Sell off some of the older inefficient inventory and put that towards the project so we can get that off the ground, or go back to Treasury for some money to try to get the project off the ground. But I think they, as you mentioned earlier, they're really keen on going back to the private sector and seeing what kind of partnership they can have there. So as for the lodge still has some vacancies. The criteria is 60 plus. Everything is included in rent, housekeeping, towels changed out weekly, garbage taken out for them, 3 meals a day plus snacks all day. You can participate in all activities and basic cables. So there's vacancies there right now, and that is it for the update.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson, question. How do they advertise that?
So we had talked about before at some of our housing meetings, going in, having, taking some video footage of them, right? Putting out a nice video of it. But of course, then the new restrictions hit and it kind of put all that on hold. So that was something that we were actively pursuing. So at the next meeting, I imagine that's going to be brought up again to see where we're at with that.
Yeah, because even if it's something that we can help through our town communications, like if the housing doesn't have a platform to be able to do that, to show some of the stuff that's out there, because theoretically when those, it's like a business, right? When those things aren't rented out there, it costs our taxpayers money, right? Because it contributes to the overall deficit, which is partially funded by taxpayers. So if there's an opportunity there, and I know from my own life here in the rental business that things have been pretty hot, that, I'd hate for people to recognize it or miss out on this opportunity that they don't know exists, because I actually think it's a fantastic facility there, but between the programming, the options you can, the different levels of independent living, and the resources that you have there, like theoretically you can get a laundry plan, a meal plan, or whatever you want there. So if you're looking for something different, something easier, it's a great step in the right direction, and people knowing that you can get in there at 60 years of age and not thinking it's 65 or 70 or whatever else. If there's an opportunity to help promote that, we should do it.
Okay.
Councillor Bosk. Sorry.
So Councillor Ferguson, you were at the meeting on December 16th. I'm just wondering here, page 14 of our package, accounts payable, check number 27229. Something's not right there unless it's $251 million check that you guys have put through there. So I'm just wondering if you've got some clarity on that.
I'll have to look at that and get back to you on it.
It's probably 251, 340. I don't know. I was thinking decimal 87, but there's still one too many numbers. Councillor King.
I was just going to say, previous to us removing our page in the newspaper, we used to advertise actually on the town page for the lodge. They are currently using the MD page, and they advertise on their own Facebook social media page. Like there's a Vanderwell social media, the Vanderwell Facebook page. So they advertise on that too, and it's shared. So
yeah, so I don't know what kind of following they get. If they're, one of the things that's really helped the town of Slave Lake following is obviously the COVID numbers. People like dial into that or whatever else. If you have more people dialing in there, maybe there's an opportunity to get more of a word out there. So, okay, perfect. Any other, Councillor McGregor?
So Bryce, when you said that you have vacancies for someone 60 and older, so that is not for independent living though? Because I got confused for the last couple reports about Vanderwell's having vacancy, but it's not for like independent people that want to go into the apartments, right?
Yeah, the apartments are a different thing. Those, there's currently a waiting list for those. So if somebody's interested, they can put their name on the waiting list, and then when they're up, then they'll get a call for that.
Okay.
But those do not have vacancies right now.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not certain on that.
Okay, so to be clear, because I thought that's what we were talking about here. What ones do have vacancy?
The lodge rooms.
The lodge rooms. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so what about the 8 beds there? Are they full? The SL3 or whatever? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. They usually are, but Okay. Okay, any other questions, comments from council? Tri-council health.
So we had a meeting on March 4th. Currently, all physician positions are filled at the moment, so that's a total of 9 physicians. There's still COVID screening and visitor restrictions. So one of the things that we had heard lately was that there was concerns from the public about vaccine waste. This is not correct. AHS is diligently booking. Health professionals pull out the vaccine from the freezer ahead of time based off of the number of upcoming appointments for the day. If someone cannot make their vaccination appointment, health professionals coordinate appropriately to have someone else receive the vaccination so that there is next to no vaccine waste. The clinic for the time being is still running at reduced hours. We would like to reinforce to the general public, if you are experiencing symptoms of COVID, please do not go to the hospital unless it is an absolute emergency. Call 811 and follow the directions given from them. Current wait times, it's 9 days to see a nurse practitioner, 8 days to see a doctor. The recent no-show rate was 7 to 8%. I believe that's the number for February, 7 to 8%. So it would be ideal to see this number below 5%. We currently have no staff shortages. And one of the things brought up from EMS was they really highlight the need for a new ambulance bay. Conditions were less than ideal before COVID, and they're even harder now with social distancing. So the province needs to step up to the plate and, put their money where their mouth is with that.
Okay.
How many babies? I want to say right around 15, I want to say. Yeah.
I heard the numbers were double over last year, like 100% increase over last year. So COVID, bringing families together. The other comments on health, Councilor McGregor.
So we have a request in with the medical or chief medical for down Dr. Frank at the hospital. I have some questions in for him, so I'll report back because March they were supposed to see some different compensation things coming down from the province, and the budget has been released. And so I'm still waiting for an update to see where they're sitting at with that. So as soon as I have any information, I'll bring it back. I did attend a North Zone AHS vaccine and COVID update tonight from 5:30 to 6:30. There was 185 people on the Zoom. And so they just talked about some different phases, some phase B, and then some phase A, C, and D, and still hoping to have general vaccination to the general public for June, July of 2021. And they still feel like they can be on target for that. So let's watch for some follow-up from that.
Okay, tourism.
We had our AGM. Councillor Brandel stayed on as chair. Lots of turnover with public members. We still have one seat open if anyone's interested. And our only returning public member was Gordon Ferguson. So we're looking to fill one seat and eager to meet in person and get the ball rolling on some tourism stuff.
Joanna, can we help promote that for them? Just like how we do our, when our other committees are looking for stuff? There's people there. This is the time of year too, that there's people out there looking for that kind of thing. Coming up pre-election to see what the world looks like. It would be a great opportunity for someone to feel that out. Library.
So with the recent announcement from the government, the library is back in action Monday to Friday from 10 to 4 for in-person, maximum of 10 people in the library. And they will still though offer curbside pickup will still be offered. They lost a table out the back, had some crafts on a table, and someone had thought that you take the table with the craft, I guess. So We'll have to figure that out a little better, but I think I'm not sure if they got the table back, but they got the word out that just take the craft in the bag, not the whole table with it. And then they have a new window display. So check it out. It's got like a dot to dot and a new window display. So yeah, they've done some really great things over COVID and they're going to continue, but of course, happy to be back to some in-person Monday to Friday, 10 to 4.
Questions, comments? Library.
She just did it.
Oh, sorry.
We have not met.
Community futures.
We met last week. A lot of our work and efforts have been put into the regional relief and recovery funds that are available to independent, small and medium-sized businesses and sole proprietor businesses. Our office alone has given out just shy of $1.8 million. If you have applied for the first $40,000 and you would like to apply for the second $20,000, we're highly encouraging everyone to do that before the funds are used up or the program closes, which is March 31st, 2021. We have a Love Local Shop Local program created to promote local shopping in our communities. The program will include branded shopping bags at select retailers, a website directory for businesses who sign up, which is free, a social media campaign that's going to highlight different businesses and contests. We hope to grow the project as more ideas and partnerships flow in. The customer service project we're working on, we're partnering with different organizations to start a customer service training program. We're looking for pilot businesses to run the program, as well as partners and contractors to assist in the development of the program. The program will be a 3-part system, including online training, an ambassador leadership program, and a secret shopper program.
And I'm really excited because we're going to do Lemonade Day again. So last year we didn't have Lemonade Day. This year Lemonade Day is for June 19th, 2021. So your children will bring home some information here within the next 4 to 6 weeks from school. I'll be sending it to all the schools in our region. And we're hoping to be able to do it. It may look a little different. And if we need to push it from June into September, we'll be able to do that, but we're really hoping to do Lemonade Day again in this region. So that's exciting it's exciting for me because I really would like to go back and work. And so I'm really excited to do something.
This is probably a stupid question, but like the Chamber of Commerce shop local thing and the community futures one, they're working together doing the same. Okay. Okay, CEC.
So we have the Northern Lakes College work plan is out. And so there was some interesting things that come out of there. There is 2,206 continuing education students worldwide that use the Northern Lakes College. So they're like Saudi Arabia, Bermuda, Nigeria, Chile, Vietnam. There's people all over. And there's a new campus that's going into Fox Creek as well. And we've had some great success. The CEC sponsoring some different courses through the Northern Lakes College. This morning I did one, which was a morning one on dealing with difficult people. And so, yeah, there's some really good courses that they've been offering, and CEC has been sponsoring them. So we're really excited and happy to be part of that.
Okay, questions? MPC.
So we had a meeting March 1st. So we granted permanent approval for 2 home-based businesses. It was their 6 months review. So we approved an asphalt plant after receiving additional information that there'd be very minimal odor. We approved an office space inside the mall, and we supported bylaw 03/2021, which is the rezoning of the parcel in the southeast from R1 to R2.
Okay, any questions, comments? Councillor McGregor.
So then to date, the MPC has approved 2 additional, so this other one makes 2 additional asphalt plants in Slave Lake?
That would be 2, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, ISTAB hasn't had a meeting. We've got one coming up on the 25th. Waste.
We have not met.
Right, they postponed and they pushed back here again. Okay. Airport.
We have not met, although we did get an email from Pierre that we have an official 100% signed forestry release now. So Rebecca, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it should result in, I think, $13,000 yearly extra revenue for the airport. So
That was their 5-year lease that comes up.
that's the
every time?
5-year one. Yeah, there were some issues with the initial signing, so it officially is good to go now.
Legacy, obviously with the building closed for the last few months, there hasn't been much going on there. So now that technically it can reopen again, hopefully we'll get a meeting set up and see what the world looks like. Protective services.
So there was a meeting on last Tuesday. Nothing major came from it. Introduced all the new people. It was over Zoom. Forestry has 65% of the regular moisture year to date. Introduced a new staff sergeant, and everyone's learning how to deal with COVID and the protocols required.
Disaster services report. It's in our action or task list here coming up that the disaster services committee already met last week. What did you? Okay. So we haven't done that, but we need to have that meeting set up sooner rather than later. So it'd be nice to get it on the calendar and blocked in before the fire season starts. Northern Alberta Mayors and Reeves Caucus hasn't met. Northern Alberta elected leaders hasn't met, but there's some survey stuff going on behind the scenes that they've been sending out. I forwarded a few of them there already, and I just got another one today, but I haven't had a chance to read through it. Motion to accept the committee verbal updates as information. Thank you, Councillor Gramlich. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Jumping into management task list, I'll turn it over to Mr. Kim.
Thank you, Worship, and the members of council. I have actually 2 updates out of the management task risks. The first one is the High Prairie School District bus exit. So we are continuing to work with the district to find some traffic control measures that could improve the safety situation. So it's ongoing. The other one is crime reduction report, as you heard today from our community services department. So with that, the rest of it is a status quo. So as they move forward, then I will report back to you later.
Okay, any other questions, comments from council? Going once, going twice. Motion to accept the management task list as information. Thank you, Councillor Busk. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Mayor's Corner, lots going on. First off, really excited today officially. Numbers came down and we're down to 7 active cases in Slave Lake. So I was talking to the chief of Big Stone today. They have a very different scenario up there right now. So a lot of action going on in some of the communities around us, but we've kind of been hovering and kind of gradually going down a little bit every week. And so to get back into single digits feels amazing. Before I celebrate it too much, that's just the news this week. So we'll see what the future has in store. Had a good meeting with Willie from Big Fish Bay last week and sent out this package, I think, digitally to council. But basically, Mr. Dreger and his group is excited to see a number of more campsites going in this year and have done a lot of the prep work there. And additionally, he wants to move forward with a marina development. So that's huge news for this end of the lake. Lake access has always been a limitation on the east end of the basin. Tri-Council looked at it a number of years ago, and fiscally, it was just something that the numbers were astronomical. That being said, the numbers are similar for what Mr. Dreger is proposing, but does have access to some of the materials and equipment and people with some of the other things that he already does within his business model that would make more sense for a private developer to do it than government, obviously. There's one piece along there that basically on the west boundary, there's a piece there that makes the most sense for some of the access. And so that's technically in the MD. So we're having some discussions there. He's already had some discussions with environment and fisheries and oceans. And so it has even had them out on site. That being said, like this stuff takes a long time. You don't expect any construction in 2021. Be lucky if the permitting is done by then, but it is exciting to see him moving forward, and we'll wish him the best of success. Council, he's going to come have a discussion with the Tri-Council and kind of update the group on what's going on. So we'll be able to have a little bit more in depth on questions, but I let him know that it's something that, as a region through the Tri-Council, we've been wanting to pursue. So excited to see him move forward on that. I'll also talk about that later. We got an intermunicipal meeting coming up on Monday. So I'm excited to meet with the MD. I actually haven't even met or even seen the new CAO. So I'm kind of excited even just for that part of it. That a lot of it is always about maintaining that relationship, and it's been a long time since we've seen some of our MD counterparts in person. So we'll be talking about budget and a few other items that been getting ready for. Additionally, Joanna's been working behind the scenes there that we're trying to get two things happening. So we've got a meeting coming up with Treaty 8. Luckily, with some of the ease and restrictions, we're able to do this portion in person. And so that's scheduled coming up, not next week, but the week after. So I had some discussions with Margot today about what that will look like. But a lot of it is about a sharing of information and an education and a learning process for council, something that we've been talking about over the last number of weeks. And so excited to see that piece moving forward, as well as we've sent a request out to a number of our neighboring communities about working together, whether it be through advocacy or planning or economic development or just idea sharing. And so we're setting up meetings for that in April. That being said, we have a little bit of an issue there that the current restrictions don't allow us to meet in person, and we've kind of been putting this off. So we're going to kind of send out a poll and kind of ask the groups, do you guys want to meet virtually and get moving, or do we wait a little bit longer? Obviously, part of it is what does the world look like a week from now anyway? Are they going to announce some stuff? So that piece has kind of been going on behind the scenes. I had the meeting with the minister's office from housing on Friday last week. It was a short discussion just about them moving forward with this expression of interest that should come out or is out already. I can't say much more than that, other than I don't expect it to be super successful, but at the end of the day, we just want to get the project moving along. So I don't want to be negative, but sometimes I call it being realistic, but we'll see where we end up. I'm excited for budget. So next week, council will bring budget to the forefront here and get that piece moving along. With COVID, everything's kind of a bit of a question mark. We'll be working through our year end, following that into the end of April. I think the auditors are supposed to be here to kind of see what that picture looks like. We've got a brief idea that, there are some areas that we've taken a hit and some areas there's been some savings, and we're kind of going to balance out. Council, though, recognizes that budget has to move forward. The world has to move forward. We're looking for some degree of normalcy. People need programming. People need facilities. We need pools open again. And so this budget, I think, incorporates a lot of those things without having a significant detrimental impact to taxpayers. So, I'll get into it more next week, but I'm excited to see that come forward. Just before we go on camera 2, I do want to take an opportunity to thank Chris Browns. Chris Brown's our communications person here, and makes sure all these things for the people that are watching, the people that are hearing, they get happen. He helps me with all my videos. Has been through this with us for a number of different disasters, and has led that for us. And so Chris used to work on the ground here with us in Slave Lake, and he went to Calgary here over a year or so ago, and has been, it's been great to work with him virtually across there, and he spent some time in Slave Lake. It's been tough, obviously, with the COVID things going on. But council is excited that we're moving towards having a person here on the boots on the ground again, to work with on a more daily basis. But I just want to take the opportunity, Chris, if you're listening, to say thanks. This is his last meeting with us, and appreciate all you've done for us, and wish you and your company the best of luck down there in Calgary. So with that, I would entertain a motion to go in camera. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor?